I still remember the sound of the door closing behind him. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was simply final. That soft click stayed in my mind long after everything else faded. People often think heartbreak comes only from harsh words or big arguments, but mine came on a quiet afternoon in my own house, in the presence of the child I raised with my whole life. The day my son acted like I was no one to him, I did not cry immediately. I just stood there, in the doorway, holding the edge of the kitchen counter to steady myself. My hands felt cold. My breath felt shallow. It was as if time slowed down just enough for me to feel every small piece of myself breaking. I had known something had been changing for months. A subtle distance, a shorter tone, a smile that no longer reached his eyes. But I kept telling myself it was just life, marriage, responsibilities, new routines, stress. You know, mothers can be naive in a way only love can explain. We think the child who once clung to our clothes, who cried when we left the room, who looked at us as if we were the whole world, we think that child will always stay with us somehow. But life has a different way of teaching lessons. That afternoon, I had cooked his favorite dish. Not because he never asked for my cooking anymore, but because I remembered how his face used to light up when he smelled it. He walked in, looked at the table, and instead of smiling, he said quietly, "Mom, I told you we won't be staying for dinner." There was no softness in his voice, no warmth, just distance. His wife stood behind him, not saying anything. And for a moment, I felt like I was a stranger who had opened her home to two guests who were eager to leave. I nodded. That was all I could do. A simple nod, a tiny gesture trying to hide a mountain of hurt. That day, something shifted permanently inside me. But before I tell you how everything unfolded and how a mother tries to understand the silence of her own child, I need to take you back. Back to when everything was still gentle, still full of hope, still warm. Back to when my son loved me openly without hesitation. Back to when I truly believed nothing could ever come between us. My son Aman was my only child. He came into my life when I was young and still learning how to build a world of my own. His father passed away when he was 8, leaving the two of us with nothing but each other. From then on, our home was filled with small routines that kept us going. Morning breakfasts on the little wooden table, evening walks when the sun softened, bedtime stories even when he grew too old for them. Sometimes I wasn't sure who needed them more, him or me. Aman was always gentle, always thoughtful. The kind of boy who would run back from school to show me the little star sticker he earned on a spelling test. The kind who made cards for me on Mother's Day out of scrap paper. The kind who always asked, "Mom, are you tired?" Even when he was the one who had spent the whole day outside. He was my joy, my companion. My entire world wrapped in a small, cheerful body. People said we were more like friends than mother and son. And maybe that was true. After his father passed, we learned to lean on each other in ways other people might not understand. When he reached college, I felt both pride and fear. Pride because he was becoming the man I always dreamed he would be. Fear because I knew life would slowly start pulling him away. But he still called me every evening, still asked if I ate, still told me everything: who annoyed him in class, what grades he got, even which professor was too strict. Even when he moved to another city for work, he visited once a month. Those visits were my sunshine. I would cook all his favorite dishes and keep the house clean, as if a special guest was coming. But really, he was not a guest. He was home itself. When he told me he met someone, I was happy, truly happy. He spoke about her with excitement in his voice. Her name was Sophia, soft spoken, educated, from a well settled family. He said she made him feel understood. He said she brought him peace. How could a mother not be glad? I prayed for his happiness every night. Meeting her for the first time, I was nervous. I wanted to make a good impression. Not as a strict mother in law, but as someone who simply wished to welcome a new daughter into the family. She was polite, respectful, quiet. She smiled gently, but there was something about her eyes I couldn't read. Still, I chose to believe everything would be okay. When they married, I blessed them with all my heart. I didn't know then that blessings sometimes are not enough to keep relationships from drifting. The first few months after their wedding, things seemed normal. Amon called me less, but I blamed it on adjustment. New life, new responsibilities. I did not want to be the kind of mother who demanded attention. But slowly, small things began to change. He stopped visiting as often. At first, once a month, then every 2 months, then only on special occasions. At first, he came alone sometimes. Then, eventually, never. Whenever I called, Sophia would answer. Her voice was always polite, but something in her tone made me feel like I was intruding. She often said, "He's busy right now. I'll tell him you called." Sometimes she forgot to pass the message, or maybe she did not want to pass it at all. One afternoon, I asked him gently, "Beta, are you all right? You sound distant." He hesitated, then said, "Mom, I'm fine, just busy." Busy, a word that slowly became the wall between us. I tried not to overthink. Mothers worry too quickly, but the emotional distance kept growing. I felt it in our conversations. Short, formal, lacking warmth. Once I surprised them with a visit on a weekday. I'd brought homemade food, some fresh bread, and a small box of sweets. Sophia opened the door. Her smile was forced. "Oh, you didn't tell us you were coming." I apologized, feeling awkward. "I should have called. I just wanted to see you both." She let me in, but her eyes told me she wasn't comfortable. Amon came out of the bedroom a minute later. He looked surprised. Too surprised, as if my visit was a problem instead of a pleasant moment. "Mom, you're here? Everything okay?" His voice was tense. I nodded, even though something in my chest tightened. "I just brought some food. Thought you might like it." He exchanged a glance with Sophia, a silent conversation I could not understand. Later, when I sat on their sofa, I noticed they were whispering in the kitchen. Sophia's voice was sharp. His was apologetic. When I left that day, I felt like a stranger leaving someone else's home. But I still loved him, still prayed for him, still waited for his calls, as mothers do. The day everything broke began like any other day. Quiet, simple, lonely. Amon had told me he might visit sometime this week, so I decided to prepare a meal. Not a feast, just the dishes he always loved. Rice pudding the way he liked it, lentil soup with extra seasoning, fried vegetables the way he used to eat after school. I spent the whole morning cooking slowly, carefully, with a heart full of hope. At noon, I heard the doorbell. My heart jumped. It was him. But he wasn't smiling. And he wasn't looking around the house the way he used to, noticing the little changes, asking if I'd eaten. His wife walked in behind him, holding her purse like she was ready to leave at any moment. "I made lunch," I said softly. "I thought we could sit together." Amon looked uncomfortable. "Mom, we can't stay. We have somewhere to be." "Oh," I whispered. "But you said—" "I know, Mom, but plans changed." I smiled, hiding the hurt. "That's all right. You can still eat a little." Sophia stepped forward. "No, we really need to go. Sorry." Her voice was firm, final. Amon didn't object. He just stood there, quietly waiting. I looked at the table I'd set, the steam rising from the rice pudding, the freshly folded napkins, the 2 glasses of water I placed with care, and suddenly something inside me cracked. For years, I had been trying to adjust, trying to be patient, trying not to burden him. But in that moment, I realized something painful. He did not see me, not the way he used to, not as the woman who raised him, not as the mother who stayed awake with him during fevers, not as the person who sacrificed everything to make his life easier. I felt invisible. I swallowed the ache and said politely, "Of course, I understand." He nodded. "Thanks, Mom." And then he turned to leave. No hug, no hesitation, no second glance. Just a soft, final, devastating click of the door. The click that told me I had lost something I never thought I could lose. I sat alone at the table for a long time. The house was so quiet that I could hear the clock ticking. Tick, tick, tick. each sound felt like a reminder of how life can change without warnings. I did not cry right away. Tears are honest, and honesty takes courage. It took me a full hour before I finally broke down. Not because he left, but because for the first time in my life, I felt he did not need me at all. In the weeks that followed, I withdrew into myself. I cleaned the house out of habit. I cooked less. I kept my phone close even though it never rang. One evening, after several weeks, Aman finally called. His voice was calm. Mom, we haven't talked in a while. I wanted to say 100 things. Ask him why he had changed. Tell him how I felt. But all I said was, I'm here, Beta. He hesitated, then asked, Are you angry with me? I let out a slow breath. No, I could never be angry with you, just a little hurt. There was silence on his end. Then he said something that broke me all over again, yet also healed me in the smallest way. I know, Mom, and I'm sorry. Life got busy, and I didn't realize how far I'd drifted. We talked for a long time about small things, safe things. But beneath his words, I sensed regret. He promised to visit soon, and he did. The next week, he came alone, with no hurried footsteps, no tense expressions. He hugged me before even walking inside. A long, tight hug that spoke more than words. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. I closed my eyes. You never will. Sophia still kept a distance afterward, but Aman slowly tried to rebuild the bond. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to heal the deepest part of my heart. Now, when I think back to that day, I no longer feel only pain. I feel understanding. Children grow, lives change, priorities shift. Sometimes they forget the hands that held them the longest. But forgetting is not always intentional. Sometimes it is simply life moving too fast. And mothers, we continue to love quietly, faithfully, endlessly. The day my son acted like I was no one to him was the day I learned something important. Love does not demand. Love does not chase. Love waits. Love trusts. And love forgives. Today, our bond is not the same as it once was, but it is real, honest, gentle. And I have learned to cherish whatever pieces of him life allows me to hold. Because motherhood, true motherhood, is not measured by how close our children stay to us, but by how deeply we hold them in our hearts, even when they walk away. And sometimes, if we keep that love steady and patient, they find their way back again.